What up, what up, what up, everybody? It's your boy, Lonzo Starr, CEO and founder of Concrete Comics, writer, creator of the legendary Acolyte. And we are back with, I think this is episode 9 of Concrete Approved. Libra season is here. I am a Libra. My birthday was Sunday, September 24th. Y'all know the vibes. We came back to bring order to all the destruction that the Geminis, the Leos, and the Virgos have caused. And now it's Libra time, and we're going to get this universe back to where it needs to be. But without further ado, I have the lovely Miss Z with me here. Y'all may know her as the Mighty Z on TikTok, Instagram. She's doing some phenomenal stuff. How you doing, my lady?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I can't call it, man. Just prepare the universe from all the chaos the Virgos caused. Um, you know what I'm saying? And just to get everything back in order. So yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on the show. I've been a fan of your content for a while, and I would love for my audience and the Concrete Comics audience to get to know you and see the person behind such information. So we're gonna get right into these questions. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's get it. Let's get it. So for the people that may not know who you are, let's dive into that. Who are you, and what exactly do you do?
All right. So first off, I'm the Mighty Z, or you can just call me Z. And basically, I cover representation of Black women in media. Usually, I tend to cover it in comic books, but I also do it in other media like TV shows, movies, anime, that kind of thing. Um, and sometimes I'll just highlight representation of other groups in general because I like to work along with other people because I just feel like it helps, really get other people to learn as well. And I'm learning a lot too from just the people I interact with. Uh, and yeah, just really making sure that I really fight for better representation for all of us. And I also uplift, people who are trying to create that better representation in the world.
Mm. And that's what stood out to me about your content. I see you tackling certain topics, and that's one of my questions actually for you is how do you choose your topics? Like how do you know what you're gonna talk about?
You really, it kind of just comes to me sometimes. Like I'll just be watching shows. My brain's a little like an algorithm, or sometimes I'll just be watching different things, and then I'll notice like, oh, well, that other show did it too. Or I'll like be reading a book, and I'll be like, hey, how come this keeps happening? And I just kind of really start learning to pinpoint these specific things. And um, I'm also a historian, and I used to look really back into a lot of the history of minstrelsy, blackface type
Yeah,
of shows. And there would be these characters or caricatures, and they would each be making fun of a specific different type of black stereotype. And I would he'd be like, hey, that looks kind of familiar because, these things really never go away. They just adapt to the time period that they're in. So, you look at stuff like the Mammy, Sambo,
yeah,
Little Pickaninnies, things like that. You look into a lot of modern shows and you begin to see a lot of similarities with those tropes. Like they don't go away, they just recreate themselves. Like, how originally in minstrelsy shows you would have the mammy, but then the mammy becomes the sapphire, then the sapphire becomes the angry black woman.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's really just interesting to keep seeing that. And then I was like, okay, so what I want to do is draw attention to the fact that a lot of these tropes never really went away. They just
Never die.
found a new way to disguise themselves, but they're still happening in media and people are still getting away with it.
So when you say you're a historian, are you when it comes to the entertainment side, are you a movie head, book head, or just all the above?
Uh, I would say I'm kind of all the above. I mean, I really do enjoy mostly reading. I engage in a lot of also graphic novels, that type of thing, like comic books, if you're talking manga, also animation in general. I'm really big on animation.
Hmm.
Uh, so that
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
big thing for me, just getting into that because I think that's a space that really needs to be looked at more because these are often genres that are targeted towards children. And I
Very
feel
much.
like what children see really matters a lot because that's a part of your growth and your development and the way that you think at such an early age. Um, and it just really instills specific beliefs into you when you're seeing things like that at such a pivotal point in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, I've been getting a lot of historical movie clips on my Facebook recently.
Hmm.
One of them was I just seen it today. It was the movie I think it was the Greenville where the schools were getting segregated and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remember like when I was younger, these are the type of movies that our parents was showing me to prepare me for what the world was like. Because even though that was back in like the 50s and the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Um, in the 90s, the early 90s and stuff like that, when I was a child, that was still, still it wasn't as segregated as, some would say, but you could still see that within the walls of your school, how your teacher treated you, the principals, how some kids got treated. So, and as a parent now, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about like, have I been showing my children that, or have I've been trying to kind of, because stuff like that kind of scarred me when I was younger.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It kind of made me afraid of trusting certain folk. But it's like I think they need to see it, but maybe not as graphic as we saw it when we were younger. You know what I mean? Seeing the pure brutality of it all. Um, Cause yeah, no, it's crazy, and I love that you
Mm.
bringing that narrative to the comic book and to this medium of visual arts. I love your breakdowns of the black woman's hair, and I just love everything I've been seeing you doing. It really starts me as a creator when I listen to your content. It makes me really really be cautious of the stuff that I put out as a creator to make sure I'm representing, our people right and black women right and just the books that we put out there. So I definitely want to applaud you on that. Because what you're doing is a science for sure. Like, and it just boggles my mind the information that you just have stored in there. Because I've seen you on a couple interviews, and I see you just people be talking about something, and then you'll just throw out a character that like is from like a back issue somewhere in a cut that no one might even know their name, and it just be like, yo, how did you acquire this knowledge? So that is a question I have. Like, how did you acquire just like this knowledge you have in comic books? It just like pop it up out of your head out of nowhere.
Yeah, just they just kind of. I think the more I just kind of learn about them, I think it's also part of what you do as a historian is that when you're looking into research, you have to remember like this specific date, why this specific date matters, what happened during it. So I think when I'm kind of getting into the backspaces, because I really do a lot of work to find these characters and to research into them. So
Yeah.
I kind of have to like compartmentalize them in my head so that I don't forget because usually I'll remember them for a specific reason. Like, okay, what about this character stands out to me? What happens to them that I can put them in this space? Like I have a space for characters where it's like, okay, this character was a love interest, and this character was a love interest that got killed off. So I can start putting specific characters into that box because it happened to all of these characters, or I can be like,
Mhm.
oh, this character was made a drug addict, and I actually have
Yeah.
a few of those, and I can put them in that box because it's just about like I notice the themes. And then I can
Yeah.
remember the character, what their story was, and then I can just start compartmentalizing them in all these different areas. And it's just kind of an interesting thing for me to do. And they just stay there forever because they really do matter a lot to me, just because it's like, it shouldn't be happening this much to the point where I can pinpoint exactly all the different characters that it happened to, what points in time it happened,
Yeah.
just over and over. I think it becomes so consistent that it's a lot easier for me to remember them.
Oh yeah, no, and it's so many books. I think that
Yeah.
I think that's what amazes me is that there's so much content, there's so many books, there's so many comic books for over the years, and I've seen you quote things from the '70s and stuff like that, and I'm just like, sheesh, man, like she really been doing her homework. So that leads me to my next question: Who or what inspired you to take this journey?
I think it was mostly just both my research because I used to do history of Black representation in media, as well as just my love of comic books. I've always been interested in stuff like, DC. It's really what I grew up on. And then being just really saddened by the fact that the media that I loved didn't love
Yeah.
me back.
Yeah.
Because, you would wait to see characters like you. And then, but those happen to be the characters that are getting pushed to the side, or they don't get included as much as everybody else, or just bad things happen to them in general.
Right.
Which can be very disheartening for someone who is trying to get into these spaces, especially like when you hear words like fandom and you're trying to find where you fit in there. And then you're realizing that these spaces weren't really made with you in mind.
Hmm. Do you remember the first comic book that you ever read?
Um, it would have been a very long time ago. I believe one of the first ones, besides like, the usual like Titans stuff, would be, I believe it was the mini worlds of Tesla Strong. Technically DC Universe, technically not. It was originally like the ABC Universe under
Hmm.
Alan Moore. But it was really cool because I just saw it because it was one of the first characters I saw who kind of looked like me.
Yeah.
And that's what just really meant a lot to the story. And like, she's a really cool character. She's super strong. She's smart. She's funny. Nothing bad happens to her. She gets to go on this journey. She's a
Mhm.
teenager at the time, and she gets to like, be that typical young adult hero who gets to, have all these adventures, has just like a lot of depth to them. And you really get to see them grow over time. Because usually you don't really see main characters like that either. So
Right.
it's really it was just really nice.
Now, that's dope. Did you have anybody in your life or in your family that kind of pushed you into this genre, or was this something that you kind of discovered on your own?
I think it was something I kind of discovered on my own because in my family, they're not too into like the, nerdy hero
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
Yeah. No, I got you. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, I recently discovered this word not too long ago. Well, maybe a couple of years ago. I love the word, so I definitely want to ask you this question that we have here. What does it mean to be a blerd?
uh, well, for me personally, um, well, like literally, it's us as black nerds. But if we're getting into that a lot more deep, I just personally feel like it's a matter of us forming a space for ourselves. Because, like I was mentioning before, when you're thinking about like fandoms, a community of people who are engaged in, these,
Yeah,
TV shows, these books, these movies. Um, a lot of the time, you'll find that these spaces aren't too welcoming to us.
that's true.
And if we want to talk about certain things pertaining to us and our culture and characters that represent us, usually we're not even allowed to talk about these things in those other spaces just because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that their favorite book or show could be racist. They don't want to hear
Right.
about that kind of stuff. And they don't really understand our own cultural perspective, our experiences. So when it came to like a blurred community, it's just really like this kind of safe space for us to be able to just be genuinely ourselves, to be able to, talk about these things and enjoy the media that we like without fears of, people being racist to us, people shutting us down, people
Hmm.
making, just these cruel jokes about us, not having to worry about being harassed, just being able to be around people who are like you and who understand where you're coming from, where you speak on certain things, people who won't like bring you down.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. And, just forming our own community.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's what I loved about it as well. Now, how do you feel about some of the people that are trying to broaden that word, the blurred word, to not just be, you know,
Yeah.
for us, but how do you feel about that? Like,
I feel it's very reductive because it defeats the purpose of Blerd in general. Like I said, we made this to be able to escape from all of the racism, all of the, harassment, all of the things that were just happening to Black fans. Um,
but yeah, no, I think where was we at? You know what? We
you had
can.
just asked me about us diversifying Blerd, and basically, yeah, I just said it's kind of a stupid thing. I not to because it's like Blerd is just for
Yeah.
Black nerds. You can't really. To
Yeah.
say that anyone can be a Blerd, I feel
I
it's
haven't
very
I
insensitive.
haven't heard many people saying it, but the people I've heard say it have a little power, and I'm like, sheesh. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You got to be a little careful with that because some would even argue that it further divides us, right? But in this nerd community, we've tried to just be, just like y'all,
Yeah.
and sometimes the bad apples overweigh the good apples, and
Yeah.
the
That's,
best way is just to separate. Because even in the Blerd community, there's bad apples in there too.
mhm.
There's bad apples everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Um, Nowhere is it's going to be 100% good. I'm sure if you look up Wakanda has a bunch of bad apples in it. You know what I'm saying? It's not perfect, and that's the same thing with our culture. But I love the Blerd community. I love where we're going with it. I feel like um, the Blerd community is definitely more anime and manga centered, but I feel
Yeah.
like the comic book love is starting to come around though. I do see that coming around. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
It's
it's
a big thing between like anime versus comics.
yeah, I feel like that's the divide, and I feel like as a creator, I kind of can see this. I feel like as a comic book creator, I know there's people that want the representation in comics, but I don't see that same hunger on the manga and anime side for representation.
mm,
And I find that curious because there's a lot of dope independent black mangas, animes, and I feel like I wish they would get a lot more love. You know what I'm saying? Than they do.
yeah. I feel like with anime and manga, a lot of people would just kind of write off representation there as like, oh well, it's Japan, so it's for Japanese people, so representation for us doesn't matter. But my rebuttal to that is how come there's so many anime centered in Europe?
There's a lot of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Because
And
I'm like, there's a whole anime where there's only one Japanese character, and it's pretty much set entirely in Europe, and
yeah,
that's okay, but we can't have anything.
I feel like even Attack on Titans feels a lot
That's what I
very
was just talking
European.
about.
Yeah, the Attack on Titans feels very European. But even would you consider Miraculous Ladybug, yeah, like a anime manga, or is that
Uh,
more comic book?
it is actually a mixture of both. The creator was inspired by both DC Comics and anime,
Okay,
specifically Magical Girl anime. So it's a mixture of those two things. And he uses a lot of like, because I remember he would make references to like Dragon Ball Z stuff like that.
yeah,
So it's definitely a mixture of both. And France actually has their own. I believe they're called Manfras, French manga.
really,
There's actually a pretty good one that I liked. I think it was called Radiant. Um, but yeah, they have their own too. Because anyone can make a manga. Manga doesn't necessarily have to be Japanese because manga
right?
itself, manga is actually just Japanese comics.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
they're
it.
all
That's how
comics.
it is.
They're all comics. I think it's just because Japan has such a distinct style of comic
Yeah,
on its own. It really paved the way for itself in that regard.
yeah.
But yeah,
So,
like you have like Korea, they have manhwas, and China has manhwas. They're all pretty much in the same family.
so my question for you regarding this, right before I get into the next question, what do you think is needed for the African American culture to create something as big as we view manga? Because I feel like we're the reason manga is so big to what it
Mhm.
is because our pop culture has taken over it. Our rappers are wearing it, our celebrities are wearing it, and we're making dances with Dragon Ball outfits on and stuff.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? What is it going to take for us to look at our own content and be like, yo, let's blow this up too?
I think one of the biggest things that I see with these spaces regarding the popularity of Black projects is like just like the backing and the finances alone, because people can be a little ignorant when it comes to small projects. They expect things to already have a ton of marketing. They
Yeah.
expect, to see a lot more like, really, really nice art as well. So if you're like still beginning as an artist, sometimes people will overlook you. They won't really see that potential in you. They want something that's already perfect. So it's like it's very easy to like overlook that kind of stuff, as well as like animation, because some people don't like to read.
This is true. This is
Some
very
people
true.
don't like to read, so like if it's something that already isn't animated, then they
Yeah.
also will kind of overlook it too. So it's also like we got to boost those literacy rates. Uh, so
Right.
it's, yeah, like just getting
Wow.
them interested in that. And sometimes people can be really backwards in the way that they think. They see, like even if it's another black person, if they see something's made by a black person, they automatically assume it's going to be of lesser value or not as good. Uh,
That has happened. And I feel
and
like in the indie comic scene, that's changed because
yeah,
people, they're seeing the quality. They're seeing that a lot of people are running to indies from the big two because they want something new, something fresh.
yeah,
And there's so much content in the Japanese market. So I understand. There's so much that you discover every day.
yeah,
But as a person of color, I I gotta see me. You know what I'm saying? I gotta see some me out there. You know what I mean? I would love a Dragon Ball style version of me out there. I love Dragon Ball. I'm a gigantic Dragon Ball fan. I love Baki and the Kangen matches,
yeah.
and all those are my type of mangas and animes. But if I could see something that represented African American culture, which we do have a culture, a lot of people don't realize that we have
Mhm.
a culture, and it
We're
can be
actually our own separate ethnic group.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be a hood culture either.
Mhm.
We can be whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I just can't wait for that day. But I'm gonna jump into my next question though. So, black women in nerd spaces, what's that experience like?
Oh yeah, that one's fun. So basically, yeah. I think a lot of the times it's one of those things where you kind of have to deal with like the double of racism in general, and then to top it off with like general misogyny as well, because and as a woman in fandom spaces in general, people will automatically assume that you don't know what you're talking about, you're not a real fan, you're just faking it. But I promise you, like if that's one I really don't get, is when people say that like you're faking it for popularity and stuff. Like, why would I pretend to be a nerd of all things? like, like I could just be on here pretending to like football or something.
Yeah,
Like I don't see that was just really funny to me. Uh, but yeah, like and also when you show interest in the things that they usually don't show interest in, like I'll talk about like magical girl shows that I grew up with that were more aimed towards young women, and I'll have people saying like, oh well, it didn't do well because it's bad. But I'm like, how can you say shows like a Precure or Sailor Moon were bad if you never even watched it?
yeah,
Like, I found too that a lot of like male followers usually won't watch or engage with something if they see that there's female leads, because they automatically assume like women, girly, not interesting,
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that. And that's actually what happens when I bring up certain characters, is that sometimes people see female characters in general as being of lesser value.
yeah.
Like they won't really engage with it. They'll say that character's lame. I don't need to be talking about it. I even had one guy basically tell me that my page would be more popular if I talk more about black male characters instead of black women,
Right.
which I just personally felt was unfair, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure more people can name more black male characters than they can black popular female characters who aren't Storm.
Oh, for sure.
Like
For sure.
it's like you're so backhanded sometimes, because I'm like, you can't really say that you're rooting for us, but then not root for all of us. So I feel like
Yeah.
it's important to like highlight women in these spaces too, especially since like even in black spaces or black comic spaces, um, it's still going to be mostly men. It's a very male dominated industry. Uh, Most characters that they're writing are usually going to be men. Women usually play the black back fiddle. You're usually just going to see like Wonder Woman and
Yeah.
then dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be really hard sometimes, just seeing that kind of backlash to things that I talk about, things that I say, or they think that you shouldn't be talking about these things at all. You're less than qualified. Like I've had people, they'll tag male creators in my comments and say like, "Oh, well, can you fact check this? Can you fact check
Yeah.
that?" Like, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. No, I dig it. Yeah, it's that's one thing. And to double back on what your statement about being a nerd, like a nerd is anything. Like
Yeah,
a person that is super knowledgeable of sports is a nerd. They're a
yeah.
nerd for sports. Like they can name every player on the roster. Like it's like 60 people or 30 people on a football team. They can name you every one of them. They can
Hmm.
go and play Madden. They can swip around rosters. They know everything. To me, that's a nerd. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that can tell you every hip hop fact ever known. They're a nerd. They're just not the nerd that you see in your head when you think of a nerd. You think of somebody, playing Yu-Gi-Oh or something. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Slamming cards on a lunch table, desk.
yeah. And a
But
lot of people just still think that women just don't do any of that. Like,
yeah.
I can name you several girls who play video games. I can
Oh,
name
yeah.
you a lot of girls who really like sports, who do the whole fantasy football thing. Like, I can name you girls who grew up watching anime just as much. And I really don't think, even if you just grew up watching like Sailor Moon or something, like I said, like something like a more directed at girls, that doesn't make you less of a nerd. That
Yeah.
still means you watched anime. Maybe not the specific kind of anime that other people do, but it's still anime nonetheless.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And see, when I was younger, when I first saw Sailor Moon, it was in a block. It was Dragon Ball will come on first, and
Mm.
Ronin Warriors, and Sailor Moon. Now, typically, I wasn't attracted aesthetically to Sailor Moon because of when you first to see the commercial, it looks real princessy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It looks kind of crazy. So as a young boy, I probably wasn't clicking on it. But I watched the episode one time by accident. I said, "Oh, this film kind of crazy." You know what I'm saying? And then I realized, oh yeah, that's pretty dope. It still wasn't like something I was
Yeah.
jumping to watch, but I knew it was fire at the same time. It just wasn't my, and it's
Yeah.
okay for something to not be your cup of tea. It's
Yeah.
okay. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we got to get across to the community is it's okay to not like something. It doesn't mean it's trash. It's just not your cup of tea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like some things are aimed towards specific groups. So like that'll happen sometimes. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people, I think it's fine, like to like not like one thing, since usually it's just not particularly for you, but that
Yeah.
doesn't always make it bad.
Yeah. No, that's a fact. But I'm sitting there thinking in my head like what's some shows that I watch that may not be for me that I watch. Listen, me and the wifey watching Housewives of Atlanta. I'm saying that's not really for me, but I watch it. You know what I mean? Or Love Is Blind, stuff like that. They're cool. I wouldn't typically go to them by myself, but I can watch them and enjoy them, and that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and people just got to be cool with that, man. I feel like everybody wants to be heard, but not everybody needs to be heard. You know what I mean? Not everybody needs a platform, and I think too many people got a platform. But as far as Black women in nerd spaces, do you feel like you guys are starting to be heard though?
I definitely see it a lot more, especially like with the friends that I've been making. I've been meeting a lot of like cool mutuals who have like way bigger platforms than I do, but they've been doing great. They've been they get hate too, but I think they do a pretty good job with dealing with it and just keeping it moving. And I'm just really glad to see that there's more of a normalization of it in general because for a very long time people just assumed we didn't exist at all.
Oh no, that's for sure. I feel like from my perspective, I feel like in this small indie community village we live in, most of the top media presences are females
Mm,
and black females that kind of run the culture. And there's a few males in there, but it's very few that deal with comic books. A lot of them are manga, anime, boom, boom, boom.
yeah.
So we
Yeah,
can pinpoint,
that's when things get a little smaller
yeah,
because
it
most
gets
of my
smaller when
mutuals they're
start coming up.
very anime oriented.
Yeah, so that makes it easier for us as well as content creators and stuff like that. So I think I got two more questions for you, and then
Yeah.
we right up out of here. Uh, my next question is: 5 years from now, what are you going to be doing? What's going to be built within this 5 years, and what's your mission?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'm still sorting that out myself. That's a scary one.
Listen,
uh,
it's cool.
I guess in the wishful thinking kind of way. I would like to be finished with writing and stuff because I
Mhm.
do write. It's just the development with that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Are
like
you
maybe
are you?
to
Mhm.
something tangible at that point.
Oh yeah. So are you talking about? Are you trying to make like a novel, a comic book, a manga?
I would say something kind of like a comic.
A comic book? Hey, listen. Whenever you're ready to go down that journey, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Let me know. 'Cause I might have the resources for you. But no, that's. Are you planning on? What about your platform? Like, are you planning on building like a podcast? Is there anything coming down the line like that?
I've actually been asked a lot about doing podcasts. So that's definitely something to consider. Larger platforms like maybe a YouTube, something like that. Uh,
I
yeah, just
definitely
around for
think that
there.
you need a YouTube. Like with your knowledge is crazy. I like you with a YouTube would be ridiculous. Would be ridiculous because some people, and especially reels, are blowing up on YouTube now as
Mhm.
well. Um, is TikTok your main like is it TikTok and then Instagram type?
Yeah, TikTok and Instagram are like my main ones. Twitter's just for fun.
Twitter just for fun. It gets crazy on Twitter though.
Yeah,
Real crazy on Twitter.
yeah.
um,
I'm pretty like my Twitter's pretty small, so I like to keep it that way because I know Twitter is a little crazy.
You
Um,
gotta keep it small because once you get up in them thousands, oh, it gets
yeah, no,
it starts getting real reckless up there.
Twitter's a little too hard to regulate sometimes with like what you do and don't see. Uh,
No, for sure, for
because at least
sure.
with like TikTok and Instagram, I can pretty much maintain who sees content, who's around, and it goes more algorithm based, where it's like wherever you're tagging your content, that's usually the people who are going to see it. It usually doesn't leave that community, that space. But Twitter,
Yeah,
it's like a free for all.
yeah. No, I definitely gotta see. I don't really like TikTok like that. It seems like to me it feels like I would have to post too much. I don't like
Yeah, you
social
have to
media
be
like
like
that.
really, really
You know what I
consistent.
mean? You gotta
Um,
be consistent as hell, and I'm consistent on IG and Facebook,
yeah,
but more so Facebook. But TikTok is just too much for me.
there's a science to TikTok, and
Yeah, it's too much for me. But when you crack that science, it's and I mean it's definitely profitable for you. But no, that's fire, man. So I got this last question for you. It's called top three, where we're gonna run through some things real quick. I want to see how deep that brain of yours goes. So my first top three for you. Name your top three favorite foods in manga.
top three favorite foods in there. Um, I'm gonna say cold soba. I think
Mm,
cold soba is a good one. Um, hmm. I also want to say I know it's more of a dessert, but I'm gonna say danga, the rice cakes. Um,
okay. Okay.
I feel like ramen's a little generic, but I will say onigiri because I do like onigiri.
The ramen that Lord Bears be eating be looking good as hell, man. I will say that. All the food he be eating looks fire. Like I don't never see none of them eating it, but what they be making him, it looks fire. You know what I'm saying?
I'm also just
Um,
like a pasta person in general, so like noodles is like the go-to.
yeah. All right. Top three vehicles across all movies, anime, comic books. Top three vehicles.
Top three vehicles. Um, I think I'm gonna say the Batmobile is kind of just an easy one because the car does like it has everything. It takes voice command. It can turn
Right.
into stuff. I'm pretty sure it has like uh, anything you ask it, it probably has it in there. Like if you need a cup holder, it just has one in there.
A
Like,
cup holder.
you just
Wouldn't that be funny if out of everything the Batmobile didn't have no cup holder?
that would be a farce.
You know what I'm
I would be very upset. Um,
saying?
let's see here. Hmm. I am going to say. See, I think it would be cool to have the Nimbus, but then you have to like, how do you define being pure of heart?
Nimbus is definitely a vehicle, though. It's definitely a vehicle. I didn't expect that one. I like that one right there. I like that one. You know what I mean? But how would your hair?
Yeah,
You
how do
got the
you
hair done. You know what
qualify?
I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Oh
Man,
man,
you just got your hair done. You trying to go out. You hop on a Nimbus. Your hair gonna be crazy when you get down, right?
true. You have to probably wear a hat. uh, and then I'd probably say, I think Appa from Avatar: The Last Airbender counts as a vehicle
You know,
because he's like
some
a vehicle, but he's also a pet.
I think all my vehicles sound all old school compared to yours. I'm talking about the Millennium Falcon. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? The damn DeLorean. You know what I'm saying? Um, I would say the Vin Diesel Charger, man. You know what I mean, for sure, because that's almost as powerful as Batman's Batmobile, for sure. You know,
and the DeLorean, that's kind of like in Doctor Who, like the TARDIS, where you can basically go wherever you want, like in space and time and stuff.
I thought you were gonna say that vehicle that Homegirl and Dragon Ball Z be flying around in.
um,
I forget what that one's called.
oh shoot,
I can't think of the name of it either, but I mean, because her junk can time travel, it do everything, right?
true, time
She can
travel
be
is fun.
flying, she do everything with that thing.
I
So
don't know. Part of me wanted to say the invisible jet just because,
Individual Zet was so trash by design.
but it's like, I mean, who would see you though?
Well, everybody to see you. When Wonder Woman was in it, we just see her sitting.
I think that's just for like the visual, so we know she's in the jet.
That was such a trash design though. Like, why would we just see her? Like, what's the point of it being invisible?
I guess so that like foreign forces can't shoot it down and say it's a UFO.
Her whole head was exposed.
Although I will say, I mean, I guess like when you fly, you do get tired. But if you can fly, do you really need a flying ship?
Well, back then she couldn't fly though.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She just started flying maybe like in the 2000s, right? I don't remember her flying before then. In the 90s, I think she had
Yeah,
that
yeah,
experience.
that's a new thing.
You know what I mean? So, and I'm glad they did it because it makes a lot more damn sense. But so my last top three is top three supervillains you wouldn't mind taking over the world.
Um, I don't think he's much of a villain anymore, but I am going to say Magneto anyway.
Magneto would be a good one.
I feel he's pretty understandable. I could understand. I think he'd make a pretty nice world. I think he knows what he's doing.
Mm.
Hmm. See, now this one is tough because most anime villains are like
Most of them are trifling. For sure.
like
Most of them are crazy.
like villains. Like, oh no, shoot. Um, yeah, no, I don't think I want any of them in power. Uh, I guess Poison Ivy because really she just wants to help the environment. Maybe like with a little therapy, she maybe wouldn't
A
hurt.
little bit of therapy, huh? Yeah, that's true. Maybe the world will go green. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't mind that. And then finally, I guess. See, that's the thing. Some of them, when they make good points, that's when they have them go off the deep end. So it's like,
Yeah.
so then you're like, I don't know about that. Let's see.
What would a world with Killmonger be like?
That would be interesting because with a regulation, I think he could do. I think he could do some good. Because really, his plan was just to help the oppressed be able to have some way of decolonizing themselves. So
There will be blood on the way though, for sure.
this is true. This is true. It wouldn't be all too. I mean, like after that though.
I feel like Magneto wouldn't be too much blood. It would be like, yo,
Really wouldn't. Yeah,
you know what I'm
I think Magneto could be a little more reasonable because I mean he will do it, but not without reason.
yeah, his people would be too scared to oppose him.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
I think Killmonger could be a good one.
Killmonger would be fire. I would. I was gonna say Megatron, but nah, hell no. Like
I'm pretty sure he would extinct us.
he's way too ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I was thinking like I don't know if you've ever seen Legend of Korra.
I haven't seen the whole thing, but I know who you're talking about. I believe.
I think it was going to be between Zahir, because
Mm,
I think Zahir wasn't too. I don't think he was too bad, because really with him he was anti-monarchy
mm,
and actually did something about said monarchy. I think it's when they had him like go into like I don't know. It's like whenever they do something good, that's when like all of a sudden they just like go crazy.
yeah.
But I think Zahir was a pretty good one. I don't think he was that bad. Either
You know,
that or I don't know, because with Amon just wanted everything to be like on an equal playing field. Because I
mhm.
guess when you're living in a world where people can literally bend the elements, and you're just a non-bender, like what
It's
do
a little
you?
scary. It's a little scary out there. You know what I'm saying? It's a little scary for you. I don't think Lex Luthor would be bad if he ran either. I think he's because he don't. Besides what he does with Superman, he really wasn't doing anything. Like before Superman, he was just chilling.
True.
See,
I think it's just like that thing where it's like, once something has proven itself to be very strong, other
yeah,
things will try to prove that they're
challenge.
strong. It creates like a tournament almost. Uh, so yeah, because with him, he was really all about the advancement of
Yeah,
humanity.
that's it. He was really not doing anything. Like he was literally Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, he just had money. He was creating things, and he just decided to use his money to kill Superman. He said, "You know what? I'm gonna get him out of here." And
yeah.
that's where
It's
he
mostly
turned
because
evil.
in Lex's mind, Superman is kind of a threat to said humanity.
He
He
is a
really
threat.
challenges that. Uh, yeah, he's a really complex character in that regard. Especially since like he's actually cured most diseases too.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like people don't give Lex enough credit. He's just a man that's afraid. And I guarantee you, if this was real world, the government would back Lex 100%. Whatever you need, Lex. The
Yeah,
whole
like, it's kind
military,
of like
Navy, whatever you need.
people who often do see like Amanda Waller.
I don't know.
Amanda Waller is kind of a villain, although I feel like she's a little more in the gray area. But
She,
really, Amanda Waller is kind of in that same regard where she does view superheroes as an unregulated force that could be a threat to people.
yeah,
Because really, with her, she is
yeah,
all about regulating the Justice League, just because of the amount of damage that they can do.
yeah. See, I feel like Amanda Waller though is one of them people that would definitely be like, if there were no superheroes, she would be like kidnapping people, torturing, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
Experiments.
she really is a government official. Like that's
She
her whole thing.
He would do it all. Lex is just a guy that's inventing. He's no more than Oscorp or those guys.
Yeah.
He's just creating things. Some may be of mass destruction, but Amanda Waller, hell no. No.
Like, I
No.
mean, if there's any government secrets, she is hiding them.
She would. I would rather Nick Fury than her for sure.
He's a little bit on the more benevolent side. He's like he's a
Yeah.
lot more of a nicer person.
And I'm sure he does the same things as her, but it would
Yeah.
be. I feel like there would be more of a heart behind it. Like he wouldn't just be torturing people for answers, unless he really, really had to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
No,
saying?
Amanda Waller, her whole thing is that she'll just do whatever she needs to do to get something done. And most of the time, like, she doesn't really go with like the wrong way, right way. It's just whatever way that it's gonna work with her.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think she's scary. She's scary, but I don't know if there's ever been a storyline of her like kind of taking over everything, but I think that would be a dope storyline for
It
sure.
would be interesting. Like what is it? Because even with like Lex or Batman, like we've seen Batman with his like contingency plans and things such as
Yeah,
that. Because I'm like, oh, it's okay when he does it, but when somebody else does it, they're a bad guy.
exactly. He literally has a satellite in there. Who authorized that? You know what I'm saying? So who authorized? At least Tony, he works with the government. Like he was making stuff for them. You know what I'm saying? And he just bends the rules a little bit. But
Yeah.
no, I love this top three. This was probably one of my favorite top threes. I mean, it really got a little crazy. Last thing, let's drop a gem of inspiration on anybody that may be looking to just be a content creator or just have their voice heard, man. Guide them on the path of being comfortable.
I guess really just ease into it, just have fun with it. Find what you really like to do, what you really like to talk about, something that like just really gets you going, and just start from there. Try not to be too concerned about the people who don't like what you have to say or the people who aren't listening, because eventually you're gonna find that right group who is really going to appreciate what you're doing and what you're talking about.
Nah, that's fire, too. Z, I really appreciate you coming on and showing love. Um, and keeping it concrete. You're definitely concrete approved. Your content is concrete approved. And I'm just excited for the people to, get to see another side of you, because you're not usually on this side of being asked who you are. You're usually just breaking down facts and knowledge and letting people know what it is. And so I'm excited for this, and I truly appreciate you coming on for sure.
Thanks for having me.
Now, and with that being said, y'all know what it is, man. This is Concrete Approved, and we are about to get up out of here.